Tomatoes has turned 25 years old, and in celebration, they did a massive bracket showdown to determine the best director of the last 25 years. And by that, they mean director who released their first movie within the last 25 years. And the results of the tournament are finally out there. And to cut to the chase so you can know the final result, they said Christopher Nolan won. But if you look at the top 8 people in here, it actually gets pretty interesting. So I kind of wanted to dive in and talk about this just a little bit. But started with 64 different directors. And so, I mean, you got Antoine Fuqua, you got Denis Villeneuve, Steve McQueen, you've got Jason Reitman, Ava DuVernay, all kinds of people. Ben Affleck, Greta Gerwig, Ryan Johnson. I mean, all over the place, whether you're talking about people that have won Oscars, whether you're talking about people who have made a lot of money, like James Wan is in there. They're all kind of, J.J. Abrams was included in the list. And so it gets interesting when you start getting into like the top 8 on here. So kind of walking through some of that just real quick to give some thoughts on it. Which one? There we go. Let's put me down on the bottom. So you look in the top left on here. We get Iratu versus Villeneuve. Villeneuve takes the lead on that one. But you look at some of these other ones, like Jason Reitman makes it awfully far into this, and then he's up against Bong. Damien Chazelle, Taika Waititi makes it into the top 8 on this list. And you're like, of all 64 directors, Taika Waititi actually makes it that high up on the list. Over on the other side, you got Robert Edgers, you got Sam Mendes, Lord and Miller, Jordan Peele, Alex Garland. Like, some of these are just like baffling to me how they made it this high up. And like Alex Garland of all people. Yeah, sure. Ex Machina, a lot of celebration of that one. But then he put out Men last year. Like, he made it further along than like Ryan Johnson. He made it further along than Ben Affleck. Like, Ben Affleck was defeated in the first round. Ben Affleck directed a Best Picture film. All but one of his movies have gotten great reviews, knocked out in the first round because he was up against Ryan Johnson. And then Greta Gerwig knocks out Ryan Johnson in the next round. And so it's like a bizarre series of who did and didn't make it. Just, I don't know how they selected the bracket showdowns of who's up against who to make it further through this thing. But there's a lot of really weird ones in here. Like, even when you get to a round and you have Jordan Peele versus Christopher Nolan very late in the game, and that just feels like a weird pairing because like Christopher Nolan has been putting out movies for over 20 years, and he's put out over 10 movies. Jordan Peele has 3. It's like, just, that's where it gets complicated because 3 movies versus that many movies, it's a weird comparison, even depending on what you like, what you dislike, like who has the worst movie between the two of them, who has the best movie. 3 versus over 10. And the whole thing kind of looks like that. Sam Mendes versus Christopher Nolan, that's actually a pretty good pairing. Both of them have been putting out movies for over 20 years. Both of them have quite a few movies. But like I said, on the other side, like Damien Chazelle, not a lot of movies against Taika Waititi in the top 8. How did Taika get past some of these other people? I'm baffled by it. And then, like Bong versus Denis Villeneuve. It's just kind of fascinating, but you make it up into the top in here, and you end up with Denis Villeneuve versus Christopher Nolan, which that's actually a video that I did talking about which one of the 2 directors is better. So for me, I love Christopher Nolan. I've been a fan of his since Memento came out. So I would agree with the results that he's the number 1 guy. Denis Villeneuve, not a bad runner-up. But yeah, it's tricky when you're kind of looking at who do you put in here. Do you just put Oscar darlings? Do you put art house directors that are doing real wild and crazy stuff? Do they need to have mainstream appeal? That's where I think Christopher Nolan is a safe and obvious, like the guy that should be the front runner, because he's put out movies that both audience and critics have loved. He doesn't have a Best Picture win, but he has nominations. And so all the different metrics he's been successful, and he's been doing that, having that success for over 20 years. It's not just that he had one great movie that was celebrated or a couple of them. He has a lot of movies in multiple genres that have been wildly successful. That, to me, when you're trying to pick who's the best of the last 25 years, he's got the longevity. He has the track record. So for me, he's an obvious pick. And I think when you look at a lot of the other people that are in the top 8, it's a lot more people like with one movie that got a ton of praise and made them a darling of like film Twitter. But they don't have that longevity. They don't have multiple genres, and they don't have multiple levels to their success. Like even like a Denis Villeneuve has multiple genres. Critics love him, but he hasn't had the mainstream success that Nolan has had, where even Nolan can take a 3-hour movie about Senate hearings and science and make nearly $1 billion. He's in a class of his own of what he is doing amongst all directors of all time. But even looking at the last 25 years in particular, it seems like he's a clear pick. But yeah, it's pretty wild some of the people that didn't make it into the top section on here. Like Sam Mendes gets knocked out at the same level as Taika Waititi. It's like crazy to me that those are on the same level, where Sam Mendes has critical appeal. He has Oscar wins. He has longevity. So anyways, fascinating look at what is in here. Like who moved forward on some of these ones is just, you can see it's a little bit of a popularity contest of who people actually knew who they were, so who they voted for. And so they got a little bit of a bump on there. But anyways, you kind of look at these numbers on here. What stands out the most to you is interesting. Or even like Brad Bird versus Taika Waititi. Like Taika Waititi is a name that people know a little bit more because he does acting, and then he does so many interviews where he has such a big personality. But Brad Bird is like the number of fantastic animated movies that he's directed, and then Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, and Taika Waititi beats him. That's just like, I don't know, maybe that's because Love and Thunder was not my jam. And I haven't seen all of his smaller things, but like I've seen What We Do in the Shadows, which I really enjoyed. But we're talking about top 8 of the last 25 years. What is he doing in there? Anyway, I found it fascinating. I don't know if I said anything useful in there, but I just looked at it and I went, I totally agree with your number 1 pick. I'm very confused by how this bracket was formed and how certain people made it so far up on this list. So anyway, join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you find most interesting in there? Who would you have picked amongst all of these directors to be number 1? Who do you think is the best director of the last 25 years? Love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Or what was the weirdest thing? Who was snubbed the most? Let me know down below. Keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.